गिरीश जी, गुड आफ्टरनून। काफी दिनों बाद मुलाकात हो रही है इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे, और आज बात करेंगे अपनी जो फॉरेन मिनिस्टर हैं एस जयशंकर। वो गए थे यूएन जनरल असेंबली को एड्रेस करने के लिए, और उसके बाद उनकी मुलाकात हुई जो टॉप यूएस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के ऑफिशियल्स हैं उनसे, सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट एंथोनी ब्लिंकन के साथ और सेक्रेटरी ऑफ डिफेंस के साथ भी। अब एंथोनी ब्लिंकन के साथ जो बात हुई उसमें सबसे ज्यादा, और प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस भी हुई बाद में और डिस्कशंस भी हुए बहुत लंबे, तो उसमें जो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट था, एक तो था कि जो यूएसए और जो वेस्टर्न ब्लॉक है वो एक प्राइस कैप लगाना चाह रहा है रशियन ऑयल पे जो इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में एक्सपोर्ट के लिए आता है। और दूसरा ऑफ कोर्स F-16 के बारे में था जो पाकिस्तान के पास है, उनका मेंटेनेंस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट। बट आज बात करेंगे बेसिकली ये जो यूएसए या वेस्टर्न ब्लॉक रशियन ऑयल को इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में बेचना तो चाहता है, लेकिन एक कैप के थ्रू, यानी कि उसका प्राइस एक लिमिटेड प्राइस रखा जाए जिससे रशिया को फायदा ना हो और वो अपना वार सस्टेन ना कर पाए। तो मैं आपसे, सिंस यू आर फ्रॉम दिस फील्ड, एनर्जी फील्ड से, तो मैं आपसे चाहूंगा कि आप थोड़ा सा कॉन्टेक्स्ट भी बता दें। आप इराक के जो एम्बार्गो लगा था उसके बारे में भी बता सकते हैं। तो ओवर टू यू, इट इज ऑल योर्स।
Thank you,
थैंक यू।
Virendra ji. It's a very good topic and very relevant in today's time. In our earlier discussion, you remember we have discussed this action which is taken by US, EU, and other nations against Russia for embargo. But why they were not successful? Because of the one of the main factor which they ignored, or they were not taken into impact of it, that the energy and the dependence of Europe, mainly Germany and other major economy of the Europe, on the Russian energy, crude oil as well as the gas. And gas is, so far they have not found an alternate. Now let's come to the next strategy now which they have come out, Europe and US, because they have seen when the Russian was under sanction, oil prices has gone up from around $75-80 to $120 and other thing within a short period of few weeks. And that has a boomerang, means that which they wanted to have an impact on Russia, but it is counter measure, and the economy which they wanted to cripple, they could not do it because of the high oil prices. So in nutshell, we can say now they have realized their shortcoming in this strategy, and they wanted to come to the conclusion that they can't stop Russian crude oil as well as gas as well as the finished product. So how to continue with this at the same time, don't allow Russia to have a higher economic margin from that, because $80 to $120 straight away 50% price jump was a boon for Russia and many other OPEC countries. So I'm just to keep it a little short. First, we have to all understand, as of now, or even in the past also, crude oil gas is a seller's market. It is not a buyer's market, in spite of what we wish or what we desire. So in spite of our best effort from India and many other buyers countries like China and Japan and Korea and earlier US, all these countries tried to keep pressure on these countries, OPEC and other exporting countries, to keep these prices at cap and other thing. But so far, we never had that situation where we could dictate terms like oil producing exporting countries, OPEC is able to do it. So buyers even have a cartel, or we make a cartel, but so far we were not successful to have a impact on the OPEC and Russia and other African countries who are the net exporter of the crude oil and energy.
Okay.
So we have to keep that in our mind. Now we have to compare it, what has happened in the past. So far we have seen embargo on the crude oil export and energy export from Iran, Iraq, and Venezuela. These are the major exporting countries and how it has impacted. So as per my understanding, so far only embargo which was UN approved was on Iraq, and that too for a long period from 91-92 to up to almost a decade, when Iraq was not able to sell, and whatever the export they were doing it under the UN umbrella, and that later on it was allowed food for oil, if you remember that term which was used. So oil export of the crude oil was allowed from Iraq, and that was restricted and that was controlled supervised, let's say, by UN and other agencies. So that crude oil price was coming to UN, and then they were passing it on that to the Iraq for their food purchase and other things. Rest, all other embargoes or the restrictions on Iran as well as on Venezuela were country specific, like US, Europe, and many other countries followed that decision taken by the EU and US on Iran and Venezuela. But even that has a success up to a certain extent. But the major, what we have seen is that Iraq was the toughest sanction ever had on their embargo on the crude oil energy export. So let's say compare it this with Russia. These are two different animals. Why I'm telling? First thing, it can't be imposed through UN because Russia is a veto power country and any such move can't be cleared by the UN. So it will be country specific. Second thing, Iraq and Venezuela or Iran, they all are depending upon the export of their crude or energy, whatever we call it, gas and finished product and other things. So they have no other alternative for their energy or import and other things other than crude oil, where Russia is having many other things in addition to crude oil and gas. So they are having a different footing than compared to other three countries which in the past has or gone through the embargo. Second thing, we have to understand one thing, whether it was Iraq or whether it is Iran. They are the biggest OPEC producer after Saudi. But their maximum production was, or the export was less than 3 million barrels per day.
Okay.
Kind of a embargo which these countries has gone through, Iran and Iraq. Venezuela was little lower than that. Now compared to this, Russia is almost 8 million barrels per day, almost 2.5 times the export these countries were producing and exporting. So if we compare Russian crude oil, which is coming into the market, it is almost double of what was Iraq or Iran was having. So its impact in the world will be much larger than what Iraq or Iran or Venezuela had and could have it. So we have to keep this thing in our mind that we are talking of double the size of the embargo of Iraq and Iran, because 7.8 million barrel per day kind of a crude. Now, if we add gas into that, then the number will be much larger. So which is as good as 10 million barrel or more than that equivalent, oil and gas equivalent I'm not talking of oil alone, finished product. So we have to keep that in mind. Another factor, we can't fix the price of a oil. Let's say $60, $50 or $80 is a reasonable price for a cap. Now, we have seen in last couple of weeks, oil prices are highly volatile. And incidentally, if you have noticed, the crude oil price, what was in February prior to Ukraine, Russia war, and now is same, or rather $2 lower than what was the situation in February. So it is now less than $86, whereas it was around $88. So we are at same level what was the situation prior to war. Now, why it has happened? Economically, we know that it has happened because of the apprehension of recession and the very, very high inflation, which is impacting Europe and US. Economy is tightening. China is also undergoing a different pressure. So all over world, there is a apprehension of recession, and that has resulted in the crude oil prices down, in spite of higher dollar price. So keeping that in mind, so the situation, what was a month before, which all these countries were having about the Russia and economy, is not that extent, because if the prices were above $100, then economy of Russia was much better than today, what is less than $90 or $85. So keeping that in mind, we are at the same level at what was prior to Russia and Ukraine war. Now, as of now, details are not known, but what could be, they can say, okay, against a benchmark like Brent or WTI or such trend, they will say, okay, Russian crude oil should be lower by certain dollar than this price, because oil prices will vary, and then they will say, okay, let's say for the sake of understanding, $10 lower than Brent or $10 lower than WTI, another thing, that kind of a discount or something they will ask, because This is what all this country will try to keep it mind, so that Russian should not get advantage of higher oil price if it goes up. But what my experience we have seen, other than Iran, because Iran had a big problem when this sanction comes because of limited friend and other thing, their crude oil export was limited. But those chances with Russia is limited because Russia is having a border with many other countries where their oil is going. So whether we like it or not, there will be a crude oil which will be going to other nation, including China and other things. So this will be very difficult. But as a country like India and other things, we will be very happy to have a lower price, whether in the name of discount or whether in the name of a cap. But this is one side of the story. Other side, we have to see how much it can have an impact in our other business because our dependence on Russia and other things. So how much India can have this thing. And we have to keep in mind by reducing or curtailing this export, we will be destabilizing crude oil balance, which is demand and supply in the world oil energy, because 7.8 million barrel kind of oil, as we discussed before, if it is disturbed, then it will have an impact on the other matter also. And country like India and many other countries which are going through the COVID, after COVID and other things, so none of the country would like that whatever little bit of push they are getting, they get impacted by energy and further recession. But I also feel because the oil prices as such has naturally come down, so it will not be pushed so hard or so much, keeping that its past history of its limited success. And even when it was with Iraq, though it was under UN supervision and everything, but people knows who were dealing in the crude oil. Everybody who want to buy that Iraqi oil at a discounted oil was not getting. Only few were getting. And why those few were getting? I will give you by an example of selling a cat and a cow. If you remember Tenani Ram story, somebody has given that you have to sell a cow and whatever you'll get it from cow, that will go back to that person A. He said, okay. So the actual price of the cow was, let's say, 1,000 rupees. Tenali Ram said, okay, I will sell this cow at 100 rupees, but you have to take a cat along with it, which is 200 rupees. So 200 rupees is going to Tenali Ram. 100 rupees were going to the against a 1,000 rupees price. So this is just to tell you indirectly how this thing, even if you put a cap and other thing, when the UN sanction was there, so crude oil was sold at a certain price, but everybody was not getting at that price. Limited people were getting at that price, and something else people were paying for that cat. So cow price was yes.
हाँ गिरीश जी, मेरे एक पॉइंट है. अब अभी जब वो प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस हो रही थी इनकी एंथोनी ब्लिंकन के साथ, जयशंकर जी की, तो उसमें एक पत्रकार ने ये सवाल भी किया कि अगर आप प्राइस कैप लगाते हैं तो पहली बात तो ये कि प्राइस कैप इंडिया सपोर्ट करेगा कि नहीं, ये तो पहला क्वेश्चन था उसका. तो ऑफ कोर्स मेरे ख्याल से इंडिया सपोर्ट नहीं करेगा. एंड आवर फॉरेन मिनिस्टर आल्सो मेड इट वेरी क्लियर कि हमें बेसिकली इकोनॉमिक प्रेशर बहुत जाते हैं. तो दैट वाज वन फैक्टर. दूसरी बात, देखो G7 ने तो बिल्कुल डेट दे दी. दे हैव गिवन द कट ऑफ डेट के 5 दिसंबर से ऑयल के ऊपर प्राइस कैप आ जाएगा और मेरे ख्याल से 5 फरवरी से बाकी चीजों के ऊपर प्राइस कैप वो अप्लाई करने वाले हैं. अब जब प्राइस कैप इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में लगेगा, उसके बाद इज दैट पॉसिबल कि इंडिया रशिया के साथ फर्दर बार्गेनिंग करे? क्योंकि रशिया ने बोला है कि अगर आप प्राइस कैप लगाओगे तो हम क्या करेंगे, हम एशिया में ज्यादा ऑयल बेचेंगे. दैट इज व्हाट देयर सिंपल सॉल्यूशन इज एंड दे हैव मेड इट वेरी क्लियर. तो आप एक तरीके से, मैं ऐसा सोचता हूँ एज ए लेमैन कि अगर ये प्राइस कैप लगाते हैं और हम उसको ज्वाइन भी नहीं करते, वो नाराज तो होंगे अगर हम ज्वाइन नहीं करेंगे, बट हम तो रशिया से एक्चुअली एडिशनल बार्गेनिंग कर सकते हैं. व्हाट डू यू से?
सर, मैंने आपको मुझे स्टोरी बताई काऊ एंड कैट की.
हाँ.
इट इज अ वेरी क्लियर कट केस कि मैं आपसे दो चीजें, आपने मेरे को रेस्ट्रिक्शन लगाई है कि गाय का मैं क्या कीमत रखूंगा. बिल्ली को मैं किसी भी प्राइस पे बेच और खरीद सकता हूँ.
Okay.
ठीक है sir? So you
हाँ.
can understand how things can be managed. This was done during the UN sanction on Iraq. People
हम्म.
were selling crude oil at a certain price, but as I said, everybody was not getting that crude oil. Very
हम्म.
few limited favored, I can say, US companies were getting that crude oil in spite of sanction from the US. But they were providing price of the cat to the Saddam Hussein, the
Okay.
price which he was looking at. So what I mean to say, even if with the sanction, okay, first thing is Russia will not like it because it is having its image and other things. But even if it is there are many other things. The buyers will buy some other thing at a different price. So how long you can keep on going for each and every product? As I said, Russia is different from other OPEC country because they're having so many other things to export. And so many people are depending even on the food grades and many other defense item and other things, not only India, but many other countries. So as I said, the impact which was there at $120 is not that much there now when oils are below 85, 86. And if it remain like that, yes, there will be things, but question will come, what will happen to the gas? Because if suppose crude oil pay embargo, then what about the gas? The gas price will definitely much more destabilize the energy sector because there is very limited countries or exporter of the gas. So they have to consider that impact also because Russia will then say, okay, if you are embargo on oil, I am also not giving you gas also, which is also biggest exporter of the gas in the world as of now. So they have to look at that aspect also. If gas market is disturbed, as such, Europe, India, and all over the world, we are facing the heat of the gas price everywhere. I am not why only India. Every country is facing that because of the gas price. What will happen if total gas supply is cut off from Russia? So, although I'm sure these people are smart enough, they will have some idea or some mechanism to see that it should not destabilize that much.
अच्छा गिरीश जी, एक पॉइंट मेरा और भी है। इन्होंने जो अगस्त के महीने में, एक्चुअली नॉट अगस्त, एक्चुअली जून के महीने में इन्होंने मैक्सिमम इंपोर्ट किया। दैट इज 119 बिलियन डॉलर का टोटल इंपोर्ट था रसिया से। और उसके बाद इन्होंने फिर जुलाई और अगस्त में से 15 to 20% ये कम आते गए। और ये जो उस टाइम पे इनका जो इंपोर्ट है, इंडिया की बात कर रहा हूं मैं, इनका जो इंपोर्ट है वो इराक से ज्यादा हुआ। मतलब इराक का जो क्रूड ऑयल है इनको उससे भी कम प्राइस पे अवेलेबल था, ऐसा लोग बता रहे हैं,
Correct.
ऐसा मतलब मैंने। तो वो क्या, मतलब इराक कैसे अंडर कटिंग कर रहा था, या वो उससे कम पे कैसे दे पा रहा था? वाज इट ए बायलैटरल एग्रीमेंट और समथिंग लाइक दैट?
So, as I said, there is a long-term agreement and there is a short-term agreement.
हाँ.
All countries go for a long-term agreement, say 60, 70% or 80%, depending upon the situation. Remaining, we go for the short-term. But
ओके. ओके.
let's understand, countries like Iraq, Iran, and Saudi, they're having the lowest oil cost of production because they are producing mainly from the onshore and tremendous reserve high quality reservoir. So the cost of oil production is nowhere comparable to any other countries, chahe Russia ho, chahe US ho, chahe India ho, chahe China ho. So first we have to understand they can afford even today also $10 barrel, which no other country can afford. Okay, per
ओके.
barrel because they are producing from onshore and their reservoir quality is far, far better compared to any other countries. Russia is producing from a harsh condition in Siberia and Sakhalin, another thing which is an offshore, most of the time covered with the sea, snow and other things. Similarly, US oil is also uh, comfortable or say viable, economically viable at a certain price. The moment oil prices goes below $60, US shale oil is also into trouble because it is not that much effective. So it will not be in the interest of the US or US companies that oil prices goes below 60 because the shale oil is economical at a certain price. So
ओके.
now
ओके.
comes to the Iraq, they have given this discount because of their oil production. See, if we have increased our production from, let's say, import from Russia, we have reduced our import from some other countries. So it was hurting them. So it's like a demand and supply. So they said, okay, you are getting discount of $16. I'll give you discount of $20. So you can have it from our side. So it's a economical decision which India took it. Also help all the three countries, India, Iraq, India, US, India, Russia. So this
तो
was the situation.
तो गिरीश जी, एक बात अगर हम इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स के उसमें जाएं तो एक बात तो बिल्कुल क्लियर है कि जो वेस्टर्न ब्लॉक है, यूएसए और ये जो यूरोपियन यूनियन है, ये कहते हैं कि इंडिया हेल्प कर रहा है रशिया को लड़ाई लड़ने के लिए। तो एक्चुअली दैट इज नॉट ट्रू, बिकॉज ऑयल का और इन सब की तो एक अच्छी खासी इकोनॉमिक्स है, कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी है बिजनेस में, उसमें वो भी इक्वली पार्टिसिपेंट हैं। नॉट दैट के वी आर द ओनली वन हु आर परचेजिंग फ्रॉम देम।
The best answer was given by our foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar.
हाँ,
What we are importing in a month, you are importing in a day,
दे
and all those things. So keeping that in mind, suppose even if let's say crude oil, but what about the gas? Why Europe is not able to cross? See, if they are so much concerned about the economy of Russia and then they are getting money, why they are not stopping gas import from Russia? So we can understand the contradiction in their statements
यस
just
यस।
because they have to say, even today also, they are begging or rather going all the way so that Russian gas is available to them at any cost.
उसमें जो यूरोपियन यूनियन का जो आया है ना वो सैंक्शंस लगाने वाला, उसमें हंगरी और साइप्रस ने कहा नहीं आप इसका प्राइस कैप मत लगाइए, दैट वाज वन। और G7 तो पूरा डेट भी दे दिया, कट ऑफ डेट दे दिया कि इस डेट से लग जाएगा, मगर वो एग्री नहीं कर रहे। और यूरोपियन यूनियन का क्या है, उनको यूनानिमस डिसीजन चाहिए इसको प्राइस कैप को अप्लाई करने के लिए। तो आपकी बात सही लग रही है मेरे को, ओवरऑल ये कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी बनी रहेगी, बट ये बहुत ज्यादा इफेक्टिव नहीं होने वाला है। अल्टीमेटली वो आगे पॉलिटिक्स, सप्लाई, डिमांड, ये सब फैक्टर्स इंपॉर्टेंट रहने वाले हैं, ऐसा मैं
So
सोचता हूँ।
G7 में से mostly if we US, Canada, now they are self-sufficient in oil. बाकी बचे 5 कंट्री में UK, that is also self-sufficient. They are not depending upon Russian oil and gas. Now बचे आपके जापान, France, Germany, okay, and so keeping that in mind, Germany is in a very bad shape economically because of non-energy sector. France is in okay, and so depending upon G7, so as I said, 3 or 4 countries are not depending upon the crude oil or energy supply from Russia, so they can take a harsh stand. But Hungary, Italy, and Germany, it will be very difficult for them.
थैंक यू गिरीश जी, इट इज रियली एनलाइटनिंग। और ये जो ऑयल पॉलिटिक्स है ये अच्छी खासी कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी वाली है, और इसमें से रास्ता निकालना, ऑफ कोर्स इंडिया अच्छी तरह रास्ता निकालना मेरे ख्याल से जानता है अब, ऐसा मुझे
Correct.
लगता है ना।
Correct.
थैंक यू सो
And
मच, थैंक
we
यू।
are in a very safe hand. Our government is taking very good action, position in with Russia as well as with the others.
होप यू लाइक दिस कन्वर्सेशन। फैक्ट ये है कि यूरोपियन यूनियन या वेस्टर्न ब्लॉक ये चाहता है कि जो रशिया के साथ उनका ऑयल ट्रेड है या गैस का ट्रेड है वो चलता रहे, और बाकी कंट्रीज लाइक इंडिया में, चाइना तो खैर ऑफ कोर्स है ही, ये कंट्रीज अपना जो ट्रेड है, ऑयल ट्रेड, वो रशिया के साथ कम करें, so that they can put them in a bracket. Otherwise they are going to say, look, you are financing their war efforts, Russian war efforts, but fact is actually otherwise. Every country is selfish, and why it should not be. India has to look after its interest. Thank you so much. I will see you in next video. Thank you.